Welcome to the Successfully Unemployed Show. My name is Dustin Heiner, and I am super excited to have you here with me as we are learning how to quit our job by being investors, business owners, side hustle experts, and doing every single thing that we can to not work that JOB, that just over broke job, because that's what we do when we work a job. We're just over broke. Your boss is paying you just enough to get you to continue working, but not too much that takes money out of his or her pocket. Now, today I have a fantastic guest on. His name is Jeff Proctor. He has the website dollarsprout.com, and he teaches how to, or his site basically helps people to learn how to manage money, how to take care of money, and all that sort of stuff. And I also learned a little bit of a story working at a psychiatric ward before he came here. And anyways, I'm just jumping way into it because I'm so excited to talk about it. Jeff, thank you so much for being here on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh man, so Jeff, after seeing everything that you've done, and I also want to talk about the psychiatric ward that you had to go back to work afterwards, because as entrepreneurs, we're always trying to figure out a way to be on our own, work on our own, but then sometimes it doesn't work out that well. But we'll get into that in a second.
Mhm.
And so, how do you make money to provide for your family without having that job, that just over broke job?
Yeah, so I run dollarsprout.com, which is a website, like you said, that helps people with managing their money. And my background was actually, I used to work at a wealth management firm, helping people invest their money, like individual clients. And now I do something sort of similar to that, but it's just all done on a website. And I just write content, like basically blog content. And the way that we make money is through advertising. So primarily what we do is what's called affiliate marketing. So, like, let's say someone is reading an article about how to save more money. And let's say we're listing out a bunch of tips for how to save money. And hey, we recommend, like, hey, Ally Bank is paying 1.8% interest rate. Like, if you sign up here, get an account, you're getting great interest rate, help you save, that sort of thing. And if someone is reading our article and signs up for something like that, we would get a commission from Ally Bank or whoever we're talking about. So on our site right now, we have about 400 articles on our site that, some of them have these advertisements, some of them don't. But kind of from the whole, from, building up our audience, having them come to the site, learn, everything there is to know, or everything we've written about money, which is not everything there is to know, but, we're working on it. Through that, people like come in, sign up, complete offers, and then we slowly built up an income from there. So as it stands today, Dollar Sprout, including me and my co-founder, Ben Huber, we have 5 full-time employees and probably about a half dozen or so contractors that help us out with creating that content.
My goodness, that sounds like a fantastic,
Oh.
fantastic business model. And so you already have, well, you do have 5 employees and contractors. That's
Mhm.
just, it seems like for having a website that you would
Mhm.
actually, it's like people think, why would you need having employees? It's just a website, but you have 400 articles, you have a lot of affiliates you got to work with. We'll get into that. Now,
Mhm.
I want to talk about before dollarsprout.com. What were
Mhm.
you doing? Like, what kind of job did you have then? What was the
Yeah.
process to actually quitting that job to being full time with dollarsprout.com?
Yeah. So I graduated from Virginia Tech in 2013. Took me 5 years to get a 4-year degree, but we'll save that for another day, that story. So I graduated with a degree in biochemistry from Virginia Tech. Now that part sounds impressive until I say I had, I think, like a 2.6 or 2.7 GPA and couldn't get a job.
All of us entrepreneurs definitely get low grades.
Yes.
So I'm right there with you,
Yeah.
Jeff.
I like the med school dreams were never even a remote possibility for me, but I stuck with that degree program for whatever reason. But I was always interested in finance. And, as I came up towards graduating, I needed to get a job and I applied to all sorts of like investment banks, wealth management places. I mean, just everywhere I could think of that like might accept me, and got rejected from everywhere. Like, I don't know exactly how many applications I sent in, but like I had zero success. And then I finally got a hit back from a local wealth management firm in Blacksburg, Virginia, which is where I went to school. And I got an internship for $8 an hour. Now, keep in mind, I was fully graduated at that point. I was done with school, had a degree, making $8 an hour, no benefits, no nothing. I was basically answering phones, filling out paperwork, checking the mail, like intern stuff. And through I stuck with that job for I think 2.5 years. I went from $8 an hour, then made $10 an hour. After a year there, I made $12 an hour. In about a year and a half, they gave me benefits and $16 an hour. And by the time I left, I was I had just got a raise up to 40,000 a year, but I had asked for a raise up to 60,000, because like you said in the intro, a boss will pay you just enough to keep you around, but not enough to really dip into their profit margins. And through my experience in working there, I'd got my securities license, my Series 7, and all that stuff, and was taking on more responsibility, but my pay was still pretty low. So eventually, I decided, like, what, screw this. I want to try and do this on my own. And so when I finally left, it was, I think, August of 2015. I was 25 years old at the time, had no idea what I was in for. But yeah, that's basically, that's what led up to me, first getting into what would become Dollar Sprout.
Man, so you saved up money and you
Hmm.
saved up almost a year's worth of expenses, which is super impressive. Most people can't even save like a half a month of expenses. So that is very impressive. And then with that money that you saved up, how long did it take before you actually burned through that?
Yeah. So now keep in mind, I was still kind of living like a college lifestyle, like a broke college kid. So like a year of expenses for me was, quite a bit less than, a father of three and like a family and all that. So I'd saved, I think it was about 21 or $22,000, which at my salary level was a lot of saving. And before I quit my job, I decided about a year before I left that I wanted to leave and do my own thing. I was still like applying for other jobs and just seeing what was out there, but I knew that I was, planning for my exit about a year in advance. And then, yeah, like I saved what I thought was a year of expenses and then left my job. And the funny thing is, like, when you're planning for your exit, you think that you're just going to spend the bare minimum on everything, and like that's just not how life works. So like I ended up blowing through my year of savings in about 9 months, which honestly, like, that's not like totally unreasonable. Even if I would have made it a year, I still would have blown through it. Like, our business at that point wasn't making enough money to support either of us, so I still had to go back and eventually get a job again and try again.
And what was that job? I gotta hear that story.
Yeah. So the thing about working in the finance industry is there's a lot of rules about like conflict of interest stuff. So I didn't want to give up on Dollar Sprout. So you can't just go back to a job, doing what I was doing before and then say like, hey, I've got this other business on the side that's like kind of doing sort of the same thing. Not like, I just didn't want to deal with all of that headache of, having conflict of interest issues. And Ben, my business partner, Ben, he is actually a registered nurse at a local hospital, and like an actual like legit job. He was a registered nurse. And then he said like, hey, you could work at this hospital as an aide. It's not great money. It's like $11 an hour. But that's something, and you can like, I mean, it was a somewhat urgent situation. Like, I needed money like now. um, so I eventually found an opening, and it was at the inpatient psychiatric unit. So I went from, managing money for millionaires to, trying entrepreneurship for 9 months, failing. And then now I'm, serving breakfast trays and, being on like suicide watch for like depressed patients and, you know, all of that, sort of like bathing people. It was quite the
Ouch.
transformation in just, a short amount of time. So I got that job at the psych ward, and still kept working on Dollar Sprout like before and after work, and a lot of times during work too. That's just how it is. It wasn't the hardest job in the world. It was just a lot of hours. But when things were calm, I had time to sneak into WordPress and write some articles or whatever.
And so
Um,
from there, you were building Dollar Sprout, it sounds like,
mhm,
at the same time. So you started it, quit
mhm,
your job, 9 months of time off, and then I got to get another job, got to work at a
Yep.
psych ward. That just
Yeah.
sounds.
It,
For me, I'm
and
not I can't think of the word, hospital type of guy. I'm not that
Mhm.
person. That'd just be really rough for me. And then you build up the business even more, and you get to Dollar Sprout, and then DollarSprout.com is taking off now, and then you can quit
Mhm.
your job. Was it easy? Obviously, you're working at a psychiatric ward. Was it and making very little money? Was it easy for you to say, you know what? I have enough money coming in from DollarSprout.com to make that leap to quitting there again.
Yeah, so it's funny if you look at, how I quit my first job, I quit with zero income coming in from the business, just like you were starting from scratch, like let's do it, day one, let's start. And by the time I had left at the psych ward, we were probably making enough to like pay me and Ben full-time salaries without having jobs, but we kind of like learned our lesson from the first go around. Like, you don't we didn't I didn't want to quit when we were making like $500 a month and like feel that stress again because also for that first year that I was unemployed, I in an effort to cut costs, like I didn't have health insurance, and of course that was the year I was like more sick than I've ever been in my life,
Oh,
just because there's all that stress, and
yep.
then you have the stress and then you get sick, and then you can't go to the doctor and you get like more stressed and more sick, and don't recommend doing that. um but yeah, so by the time, so I kind of slowly like phased out, and the hospital job was great. Like it was flexible, and like, I could go from full time to part time to like very part time, and then eventually just be done. So I was there for I think about 10 months or so, give or take, a couple months, and I learned a lot.
Yeah, yeah. Your experience going through that. And sorry, when did you start Dollar Sprout? You said it, but what year was it?
2015, August 2015 is when we had an older domain back then, but then we eventually rebranded in 2017 to Dollar
Oh,
Sprout and like
got it.
migrated
So
all
you
over.
moved all that content over,
Hmm.
forward links
Hmm.
and everything. Got it.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's say that I wanted to start something like Dollar Sprout where I'm helping people and I
Hmm.
want to use affiliates as well as
Hmm.
ads. I just want to, I don't want to really want to sell a course. I don't want
Hmm.
to be the face of it. And tell me the difference, in your opinion, between having something where it's a personality driven website as opposed to being like just content driven. Because,
Yeah.
when you think about a couple different sites, those are the two main ways that people create a website to then make money
Hmm.
online. What are your thoughts?
Hmm. Yeah. So I think Ben and I have like, dabbled in like creating courses before, and like we've spent months working on one, and then we just never finish it. We just like scrap it because we realize like we don't like working on this. Like we like for some reason like both of our brains are kind of wired in a similar way. Like we're both, fairly introverted, so we don't necessarily want to become like personal brands or, put our face everywhere. Um and we really like, at least I really like the idea of like, creating like a single piece of content, make it as good as you possibly can, and then find a way to market it, and you know get, if there's affiliates in there, great. If there's not, that's okay too. um get an audience to that piece of content, so it's almost like, right now we have 400 articles on our site, which, some sites have, thousands or tens of thousands of articles. um but for us, it's like each article is like a mini project that you work on. And I think it's just kind of more, this is more how our brains are wired. I just don't particularly like spending, months on end creating a course and then doing the whole email marketing. And I mean, it's extremely effective for a lot of people. It's just, not what we kind of found our strengths in.
Yeah, so it fits your personalities, but at the same time,
Hmm.
you're able, in my opinion, also, if you have a site that can reach a lot more people, help a lot more people, I wouldn't say a lot more. It just seems like a personality driven website can only, I would say only go so it goes so far, but then it starts almost hitting a cap. Whereas if you
Hmm.
have a almost like a news site or just a content site that people keep going to. Now, if I were to start, I wanted to start, do I have to find a fantastic name like dollarsprout.com and pay a couple $1,000 for? Or can I just say, hey, you know what? I'm going to put, I don't know, makemoney.com or whatever it can be.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts
Hmm.
about the domain and how do we get started?
Yeah, I think, for when Ben and I got dollarsprout.com, the domain name, we got it for, I think it was like $1,600 from one of those domain brokers, which,
What
at
was
the
the
time,
domain name
I,
before that?
Is vtxcapital.com. We
VTX.
initially, yeah, we initially wanted to have like a investment research like subscription company, and that was, part of the reason why our first year was not very successful, because it, it was too, like, the product creation and the marketing was like just too much for us to handle, and we didn't realize we were going up against, like, the Morning Stars and Kiplingers and all those people, like, of the world. So we were just in way over our heads, and blogging was a little bit easier to get started in.
And so
Just took
you, from
took us a
VTX
year to
Capital.
figure that out. Mhm.
Yeah. Well, you didn't take too much longer, which is great.
Yeah,
Some people take years and then realize, oh man, I'm in the wrong space.
yeah.
So you took VTX Capital, got
Mhm.
dollarsprout.com. What are your thoughts about the domain name? Obviously, VTX Capital,
Yeah,
to me, it sounds like a hedge fund or,
yeah.
what are your thoughts about the domain name?
Sadly, that was our goal.
Oh,
Um,
okay. There we go.
I mean, as our identity kind of shifted towards the blog side of things rather than, like a subscription, like heavy research, like the technical side of things, like, as we shifted to more of a blog model of doing things, we realized, like, hey, our domain name makes no sense right now. We've got to change it. So we eventually found dollarsprout.com, and that at the time, we paid $1,600 for it. Looking back, I think it was a great investment because, I mean, our like, it's easy to remember. It's short. It has, like, it's kind of associated with money. It's the hard thing about finding a good domain name is a lot of them are taken, or if you find a good one, it's like really, really long, like how to make money and manage your money from home.com or whatever. It's like no one's going to ever remember that or type it in. So, it's not saying that everybody, like, you have to, like, go all out and get, one of these really expensive domains. And surely, I mean, with dollarsprout.com, I mean, I think we found a fairly good deal because there's a lot of these domains out there that are like, 10,000, 20,000, $50,000. And, for 1,600, it's, for us, it was worth it. I think if
So
you're looking to start, on a smaller budget, um, I don't think there's anything wrong with, you know, just getting any name that you like and it's good enough. Yeah. So if you're just starting out and you don't want to go all out on a domain name, I think it's fine to you know, get something, just anything, and just get started. I think the important thing is to get something up and online and start learning the skill set. Because if you take forever to find the perfect domain name, that's time that you're not spending, building up your skills that you're going to need to create good content and market it out to people. And that's more important than your domain name. So if you can get just anything that is, remotely reasonable, get it and start working on it. And then, if you get a year or two down the road and you decide, like, you really want to do this, and, if you find a domain name that you like that maybe is, a couple $1,000 or $1,000 or 500 or whatever, then you can make the leap, and it's not impossible to do that.
and you
Um,
could make up something on your own and have it work out pretty well.
mhm. Oh
If
yeah.
so, for my site for successfullyunemployed.co,
Hmm.
somebody
Hmm.
already bought the .com, and he's literally not using it. I called him up. I was actually talking to him. He said, "Well, I'll use them Sunday." I'm like, "Well, how much can I give you? I'll give you
Yeah.
$3,000, 4,000, 5,000." I kept raising it up because
Hmm.
I have money, and I was like, I want the domain. He just says I'm literally not going to sell. I'm like, oh well, I'm just going to go with successfullyunemployed.co. I just need to
Yeah.
make sure I don't ever say .com. But what's great is the Google and search engines are going to be the ones that do it. I
Hmm.
find that help people find you. If
Hmm.
you can create a shorter domain, that's a little bit easier rather than
Hmm.
like your email, like Dustin at successfullyunemployed.co. Like that's just a lot of words. Dollar sprouts, a little shorter in letters.
Hmm.
So if we get a domain name, or
Hmm.
do you suggest WordPress? And I do want to talk, really dig into the content because you said a couple times, and we need to get better at our
Hmm.
skill at creating content. But
Hmm.
get a hosting because we need. Is WordPress a great way to go? Because I like WordPress. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so honestly, between me and my co-founder Ben is the technical guy, and he knows way more about this stuff than I do. But WordPress is all that we've used, all we've ever really used. Um, so it's great. I know that it's, like, used by the vast majority of people who do blogging. I think if you're, I've heard of like Squarespace and all those sites for like, if you run a restaurant and just want to put up a site for your restaurant or something that looks good, but it's not necessarily aimed at content distribution, but is more just like a face for your business. Then that, is probably a better suit for that. But again, I'm not necessarily like an expert on that. But yeah,
So
WordPress has been great for us. And I think our first hosting that we used was GoDaddy, and I don't think it was particularly good or bad. I think it was just the one that we just happened to pick first. And I think for most new bloggers, the entry level like hosting programs are pretty much the same. I mean, give or take a few like features here and there, or like a couple dollars a month. But you can't really go like extremely wrong. Like Bluehost, HostGator, SiteGround, they're all good
got it.
for beginners.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And what's great is you can create a business, start it, even if you didn't spend $1,600 to buy a domain
Mhm,
name, you could pay $8 or $10. I use
mhm,
namecheap.com for
mhm.
mine, and I also use SiteGround for my site as well. And so Namecheap is like $10 a year for your domain, and then SiteGround is like $4 a month for your domain, and you can create a business that is as fantastic as Dollar Sprout, making a lot of money.
Yeah.
So let's dive into okay. We have it's not that hard to get the domain, build
Mhm,
up a WordPress site. You can even pay somebody to design the site. But
mhm.
what you're telling me is the number one thing is the content on the site. You said a
Yes.
number of times you have 400 articles, which is great, but you're right.
Mhm,
Other sites have 4,000. I've or 5,000 or even more. I've
mhm.
talked to people that they produce one piece of content every single day, but they have other people writing. Obviously, they
Yeah,
have money coming in, so they can do that.
yeah,
So talk to us about content. What do you mean by writing good content?
yeah. So it took us, a while, and we're still like in the process of, you know, getting better at making content. I think every blogger, if you were to, look back at a post that they created 6 months or a year ago, you would cringe. You'd be like, that's so bad compared to where I'm at now. So, of our 400 articles on our site, I would say, 50 of them or so are like ones we're really proud of and we think we did a great job. And then we're trying to, bring the other ones up to that level now. But yeah, for, in terms of making good content, for at least for a site like ours where we are not a personal brand, we're not huge on sharing our personal stories and that sort of thing. Our number one goal is to help a reader solve a problem or like learn something about finance. So the way that we do that is we try to balance between having our content be as comprehensive as possible, but also still digestible. So, a lot of our posts are, several thousand words, like at least like 2,000 words are probably most of our posts, which, if you're reading it, I mean, it takes a good, 10 minutes to read through. Um, and creating that type of content takes, a lot of research up front. You want to figure out, how you want to organize it. You can't just, sit at the keyboard and just start typing away until you're like, okay, I think I've said everything. It's helpful to, sit down beforehand, create an outline, think about like, okay, here's the points I want to cover. If you have an affiliate you want to throw in there, like, okay, here's where I'm going to mention them. It makes sense to mention them here. Like, that sort of thing, to where like by the time you're ready to like actually create that piece of content, you have like a roadmap essentially laid out and then you just do it. Um, so that's sort of kind of been our approach up to this point.
So do you write as if you're just teaching, or do you put in like your own personality? Do you put in personal stories and things like that?
We have, for the most part, we try to limit the amount of like personal involvement in it. Maybe like in the intro or something, we might like share like a quick like personal bit of like, you know but then once we get into like the meat of the article, it's fairly like expository writing, just explaining the concepts. And we'll use, or we're trying to get better about, using stories from other people. So if I was writing an article on how to invest, I might like, try to include a source from Dustin about like, okay, Dustin like had $5,000 to start and like here's what he did, and kind of show, so it's not just us talking about us, but we're like covering what other people are doing. So we're trying to get better about doing that in more of our content. But it's something where like, we didn't used to do that, and now it's when we see that in other people's articles, it's like, oh, okay, that's really cool. This makes this like a better piece of content. So as time goes on, you kind of pick up little bits and pieces here and there of like what makes stuff good and what like just basically just how to make your content better.
Yeah, I think that's right on. Now, what are your thoughts about how many articles, either a week or per month, or is it more articles the better? And pausing that, or like giving that thought of the more articles, because if you don't write good articles, doesn't matter if you have 100,000 articles out there. If they're not good
Mm-hmm.
enough, people want to read. If they click on it and they click right back out, Google's not going to
Mm-hmm.
like that. But what are your thoughts about content calendars and creating content wise for your site so that Google
Mm-hmm.
starts picking it up and said, hey, this is a good site. Let's keep sending people to it.
Yeah, so I think as actually Ben and I were just talking about this the other day. We were going back through some of our content from, last year, which isn't that far away. I mean, this podcast is recorded in February. And, we realized like, in some of our articles for a stretch of time, like our quality kind of suffered. And, even though we only have 400 articles on our site, which in comparison is very few compared to a lot of sites, we felt that we were publishing too fast. So for us, and that was when we were publishing, 3 to 4 times a week. Um, and even still, and that's with, a team of, freelance writers. And it wasn't like Ben and I writing this content. We had people helping us. Um, so for us, now we're slowing down our publishing a lot. We're maybe only doing, 1 to maybe 3 a week. I think for every site it's a little bit different. I think for our strategy of, trying to create really comprehensive, best content possible on a particular topic, for us it's important to go slow and do it right rather than just try to throw as much at Google as possible and like just hope that they rank us for whatever. So that's, a lesson that we've learned along the way. You know, when you have your first bit of success in, getting people to your site, like your natural inclination is like, okay, how do we amplify this? And we we tried doing that, and then we kind of got caught in like, okay, we're going too fast. Let's slow back down and do things at a pace that we're comfortable with and comfortable with the quality that we're putting out.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because as you're putting out bad content, Google's going to see, hey, people don't like this, and they're going to stop
Mm-hmm.
sending people to that content.
Yes.
So right now you're 3 to 4 articles a week. Now you're not writing all those yourself, are you? You're hiring people, and how does that play out?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I write almost no content now, and same with Ben. So our full-time employees are actually editors, and all of our content is written by freelance writers. So we've met, a lot of freelance writers through the FinCon community, which is, I don't know if your listeners are familiar with that, but it's basically just a huge community of everybody that works in the like financial media industry. So podcasters, writers, YouTubers, all sorts of, that type of work. And we find people through there and have them write content for us. We pay them, they write content, everybody's happy. And yeah, that's basically how we've been able to scale to the output that we're doing now. Because honestly, I'm not a very fast writer, and neither is Ben. um, and not even particularly good either. There's some of these freelance writers, like this is what they do, and like they are really, really good at it. And part of Ben and I's job is like we want to take their talents in writing and match it up with our skill set of pairing that up with good monetization and getting traffic to it and just overall branding in general. So that's kind of where we're trying to like mold everything together.
And so when you say it sounds like you have contractors that are doing the writing, the freelance writers, but you have 5 full-time employees. Are they employees, like W-2 employees, or are they also
Yeah. So
full?
yeah, our well, and it's including me and Ben. So I guess 3 full-time people other than me and Ben. And they're W-2 full-time employees. They edit full time. So they're working with our freelance writers. And also we're working on a big project now of just going back through our old content and trying to bring it up to our current standards. So that is a full-time job to do. Even though it's only a few hundred articles, if you do it the right way, it should take a really long time.
I agree.
So
Yeah,
that's
all that
keeping
content.
everybody busy.
Yeah, all that content to get it to where people are going to stay on it and read it.
Hmm.
It's going to take a lot of work to make sure that people are engaged and
Hmm.
do that. Now, I am thinking, okay, if I'm starting a website, I got my domain name, I got WordPress going, I'm putting out
Hmm.
articles myself, and I'm working my job. I'm just overbooked, but I want to start growing. I think, man, I really should hire somebody at least to write. Maybe I can edit
Hmm.
because it's easy. I have time at my work. I can look at my phone or whatever. I can edit a
Hmm.
little bit, but I really need to have somebody write the articles. Number one, how do we find it? But number two, how much do we pay them?
Yeah. So we've gone through the whole gamut on this. The first freelance writer that I hired, I found on Upwork. I think we were paying them. I mean, it wasn't even on a per word basis. It was like $25 for like a 1,500 word article, which if you're familiar with, freelance rates, that's horrible. That's like you get what you pay for, and we got what we paid for. But the way that we looked at it at the time was like, okay, if someone just sends me something, like, me or Ben can edit it, and then eventually you slowly move up. So that's where we started, was finding someone on Upwork that maybe didn't work in the US and just did, because they're if you work with some international freelancers, a lot of times the rates are quite a bit cheaper. But again, English may not be their first language. It's I would say generally poor quality content. So you
And they
start
use
off at
wrong
that.
idioms and they just like that
Yes.
doesn't fit here.
Yes. So yeah, we tried that because it when you see that you can get an article for $25 or whatever, it's tempting to try it, and we tried it. um, so you go from that to, then you slowly move up to, like, maybe you found someone in the FinCon community that is like just getting started in freelancing, and they don't have a huge resume or portfolio yet, but they're just looking for their first client. And you can maybe get a decent deal on some stuff, and
And what would
they're
that be
learning how.
deal wise?
I think some of our first few freelancers. This is quite a while ago, so I might remember this wrong, but I would say between like $100 and $150 for, like, a 1,500 to 2,000 word article. So like maybe like 10 cents a word or so, which is still the lower end of things. And again, this is still like, an entry level, freelancer. And then you move up to, like, okay, here, whoops, hit my microphone there. If you move up to, a freelancer that has maybe worked with some of the bigger sites before, and they have like a decent portfolio, and they charge maybe 25 or 30 cents a word. Their writing quality is better, they have more connections. And then eventually, now we're trying to, move up to that next level where, this is a writer that's like written for Forbes or like US News and World Report or Bankrate, or like these big sites. Like, they're like the top tier like freelancers, and those folks are going to be 40, 50, 60 cents a word, sometimes even higher.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, it gets expensive, but that you move up to that as your revenue grows and your income grows. So you don't have to start at that level. You can definitely make things work with, the cheap Upwork or Fiverr, freelancer. You have to put more work in on editing, but then as you just kind of slowly move up. So there's no real like rush to get to, the top, I
So it
guess.
seems like the starting is just getting content out there, getting used to writing.
Hmm.
Obviously, we have the domain name, we got the server, we have the
Hmm.
hosting, like everything's working. WordPress is going. We're starting to put content out there. We write
Hmm.
articles on our own. Then we start scaling, hiring somebody, bringing somebody on. What about affiliates? What about ads? At what point do we do ads? What point do we do? I mean, should it seems
Hmm.
like much much sooner than ads. But at the same
Yeah.
time, what are your thoughts about how do we now make money from the business?
Yeah, so we used to have ads and affiliates. So for people who don't know, like, the display ads are like, if you go to like CNN.com and you see all the little ads everywhere, like in news articles, they're just,
Everywhere, yeah.
they're just random ads for, they're not even really related to what you're looking at half the time. Most of the time, actually, they're for just whatever. And those, you might get a couple cents here and there for clicks. Um, so we used to have those on our site, and we would make, based off of our traffic, you still make a decent amount of money from them. But we started with affiliates much sooner because you don't necessarily need like the higher traffic requirements for affiliates. It's more just if you have a good spot for someone in an article, if you just contact that advertiser and be like, hey, whether it's via a network or you reach out to them on a contact page on their site or whatever, to say like, hey, like I want to join your program, like how can I get in? And like usually it's pretty easy. Like sometimes you'll get rejected, but that's just part of the game. We still get rejected by brands all the time. It's just how it is. And you start getting some of those placements in there, and then you might start making like $1 or $2 a day. Then it turns into $5 a day, $10 a day, and it hopefully just keeps kind of growing from there.
So how do we find the right affiliates? Do we just start like type in, if we're going to go after a bank, just type in
Mhm.
banks and try to find, is there like a network of affiliates, or how do we do
Yeah.
that to make sure we're finding the right ones?
Yeah, so where we started was we joined a handful of what are called like affiliate networks. So like one example would be like CJ.com, which I think stands for commissionjunction.com. But it's just CJ.com. And it's basically just a website you go to, you sign up, make a profile, it's all free. You like set up a profile for your site. So like they know like, okay, like Jeff with dollarsprout.com, he gets this many visitors a month. That's what the site's about. And then there's this whole like network of advertisers that you can promote. So if I were to go, sort by like financial industry, like, and then it shows me all like the relevant advertisers for like, okay, for taxes, there's H&R Block and TurboTax and whatever. And then, banks, or, if you want to promote like Uber or Lyft or whatever. So once you join one of these networks, you have a consolidated place where then you can apply to affiliate programs. And that's typically like the first step, is like joining a handful of these networks. There's quite a few of them, and a lot of them have the same advertisers, but you might find like small discrepancies like here and there between networks. Like one might pay, $5 for like a commission, and one might pay $6. So stuff like that, where you just want to find the best deal. But yeah, that's where we would start, is there. And then if we can't find an advertiser on a network, we would just then reach out. But a lot of times when you're first brainstorming for, affiliates or advertisers to promote, you look at, what, if you're writing from like a storytelling perspective, or like from your first person experience, like if you say like, hey, I love using personal capital to track my net worth, like, and you use that personally, then that would be a great fit to put in your article. And Personal Capital has an affiliate program on flexoffers.com, for instance, and probably a bunch of other networks too. So start off by using the companies that you like use and are familiar with, and then you can eventually branch out and see what programs are other bloggers in your space promoting, and what companies are good versus like, if there's a company that has an affiliate program, but like that company just, you don't want to promote them, like you don't have to. You can
And you
just
shouldn't,
leave
in
them
my
on your
opinion. You
site.
absolutely should, because they could turn back on you and like, man, this people, that Dollar
Yeah.
Sprout, they sent me over there and they're just not teaching
Yeah.
me, or they're not
Hmm.
taking care of me as well as I should. So yeah, I would
Hmm.
agree that,
Hmm.
and I do love having like CJ.com, Impact.com is another one
Hmm.
that I use.
Yep.
I love having all my information in one, so I don't have to
Hmm.
continually put in that information. All I got to do is click like apply for an
Hmm.
affiliate, and
It is
they
nice.
look at everything I've already done, and they either say accept or reject. And you can obviously, if
Hmm.
they reject you, you can probably reach out again or email them or something
Hmm.
like that. But it
Hmm.
just creating so many different accounts, like with each and every single affiliate, it's a lot of work. It takes a lot of time.
It does. I mean, I'm looking at my like toolbar in Chrome right now, and I've like the first 20 are like different networks and stuff, and we're working on consolidating it. But yeah, you just got to be at least a little bit organized, keep
So
track of where everything is.
what would you find is one of the better affiliate? Like what companies are good? Is it banks better, insurance companies, H&R Block, like you
Yeah,
said? What companies are
it's
good?
I think the first thing to look at is not necessarily, you know, which ones are the best to promote, but which ones are the best match for the content that you are writing that resonates the most with your readers. So, for instance, like when Ben and I first started, transitioning into like our blogging content as opposed to our membership, nonsense that we were doing before, we were writing we were writing blog content on investing. And then, we would, experiment with, writing an article on, the 10 best ways to make money on the weekend or whatever. And we found that like our audience really loved that stuff a lot more for some reason. So like, okay, like how can we find affiliates that resonate with like this type? Like we can still add investing affiliates, but I'm not gonna try to like, relentlessly promote TD Ameritrade if my readers are more interested in, driving for Lyft on the weekends. Like, so you have to match not just you have to match with what people are like consuming on your site and what they want to do and that fits their interests the most. So, if TD Ameritrade is paying $100 for a new account, but I can't convert any of them, but if, I can get someone to sign up with Instacart and make, $20 a pop or whatever, like it's worth my time more to go after the lower commission, higher volume stuff that actually resonates with someone. So
That's
that's
great.
yeah, and of course these lessons are learned like after trying to promote TD Ameritrade forever, and it's like not working because people on your site are reading the other stuff. And that's just like a random example. Like I
Yeah.
just made up names there. Like I don't even
So
know if we're affiliates for TD Ameritrade.
so what
I don't
was
think.
the at what point did you realize taking off ads was better for your company as opposed to leaving them on?
Yeah, so we kept them on for, I guess we haven't had them for a while now, but when we took them off, we were probably giving up probably at least 20,000 a month in revenue, which hurt a lot. But
In
we were
ads,
trying to look.
$20,000
Yeah,
in ads?
we were we had quite a bit of traffic. And if you're a site like, I mean, if you go on like some of these news sites, like they really throttle up the ad frequency where it's just miserable to be on a website without ad blocker on. Like I know if you go to Forbes, it's like
It's
almost
horrible.
unreadable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
But they make a lot of money from those ads. So it's, for us, we were looking at, where we wanted to go as a brand. And we were looking at kind of the leaders in our space. And, none of them have display ads for now. I'm talking about, like where we aspire to be in, however many number of years, even if we never get there. But if you look at the sites like NerdWallet or Credit Karma or those types of sites, like since they are so focused on affiliates, they don't have any display ads. So your user experience, since your ads or affiliates are already within your content, you don't necessarily want to just like layer on display ads on top of that, and then your whole site is just like a spam fest. So for us, we wanted to make the decision to, just get rid of the display ads, just rip the band-aid off basically. And, if you don't see the money come in, you just don't like think about like what you just gave up sort of thing.
So, man,
Um,
to think to give up $20,000 in ad revenue, that's per month,
mhm.
correct?
Yeah, I
Did you
would
see that?
estimate.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I would estimate, yeah, it was at least that at our traffic peak. And obviously traffic ebbs and flows, but if we were to have, ads displaying on all of our articles at like a relatively high frequency, like what you might see on a news website, it would be multiple tens of thousands, I would estimate, that we were giving up
Did you
in
see
ads.
from pulling that off, did you see an uptick in your affiliates and like basically people staying on
Mhm.
your site longer? And did it pay off? Like, did you make up all that money and then
Yeah.
some because you took those off?
Yeah, it's very hard to, directly, you know, see the trade-off because there's a few trade-offs that are being made. Is the user experience is better just because there's no ads on the site. So overall that's going to slowly improve your brand quality and just your overall branding, which is very hard to quantitate. um, and then you also have, you're improving your site speed a little bit because those ads take a few seconds to load. And Google, if they have to choose between a site that takes 1 second to load and a site that takes 6 seconds to load and everything else being equal, they're going to take the faster site. So for us, by getting rid of ads, for us, it made sense because it gave us a higher chance of hopefully, ranking our articles higher and getting traffic that way, and then getting people to then, hopefully funnel down into offers that are actually catered to them rather than just a bunch of display ads. So again, for us, since our content strategy is so focused on affiliate marketing, it made a lot of sense to do that. But if we were like a news website, or if we were sharing a lot of our personal stories or whatever, and a lot of our content wasn't monetized, then that wouldn't make sense, because we would just be spending money to create content and then get nothing in return, which is
Yeah.
not a viable business
Yeah,
strategy.
yeah, that makes sense. And
So,
it does seem like the way to scale is to get more traffic. Now you have the affiliates in place. You already have the people, the companies that you want to work for or work with and have them as
mhm,
affiliates. It seems like the way to scale is to get more traffic. Is that correct? And how
mhm.
do you do that?
Yeah, so what we started doing, well, we first started like trying to do like the like Facebook and Twitter and all that, and like we weren't getting really any traffic. Like, I mean, I think if you try to
You're
like
talking about
start,
ads?
no, well, first we started just like organic. I mean, this was like 5 years ago, so like, it was slightly easier back then, but not much. But yeah, I mean, when we were just like sharing our articles on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, like we weren't really getting enough traffic to move the needle at all. Like maybe like 50 visitors a day or something. And then we kind of got in at the tail end of the like Pinterest rush of like everyone was getting a ton of traffic on Pinterest. And, Ben and I, as, you know, non Pinterest users in real life, it was like a whole new world when we were like, okay, people actually use this site. And like, how does this work? Like, what is a pin? Like, what do we do? And then, we got a little bit of success with that. And then we like really focused on that a lot for like our main, content distribution strategy. And then, as we started getting income from there, we, realized, like everyone says, you don't want to have all your eggs in one basket. So we, eventually started to transition our focus into Google and search engine optimization and all of that, which um, is basically, for those who don't know, it's basically just like a way to create your content in a way that makes it easy for Google and search engines to understand what your content's about, and then assess the quality and rank it accordingly. So if someone searches on Google for how to start investing, there's probably like 50 million articles about how to start investing. So they've got to have some way to rank them, and there's certain strategies that you can use to increase your odds of ranking higher in Google. And it's definitely not a it's not a quick return on your time. It may take something 6 months to a year to eventually rank, as you make like little improvements here or there, get it out there, get more readers on it, give Google more data on how your article is performing and that sort of thing. So yeah, we started off basically doing Pinterest, and then we transitioned into Google. We still focus on Pinterest quite a bit. And then we layer on now we're doing paid Facebook ads to some articles, and doing a little bit of Google ads, not a ton. Um, and that's kind of the gist of our, and we also have an email list too. So, but that's like
So
comparatively small, like compared to our like traffic.
in the email list, you would just email them
Mhm.
like, here's some like a new piece of content we just wrote, and here's this
Mhm.
might help you, and maybe some a little added to what's already on the site. You write the
Mhm.
emails that help make them want to go back and check out
Mhm.
your site. Is that correct?
Exactly. And we also recently have been using our email list to, you know, we're working on, we just started a YouTube channel within the past year, and that is just like starting on any of these other platforms. You're starting from square one. Like, it takes a long time to get traction. But what we're doing is, we're using our email list to, send people to our channel. So now we're kind of leveraging one asset to build another. So you take your Pinterest traffic, you get people to sign up for your email list, then you get people to sign up for your YouTube channel, and like if you do this for years, like eventually you have something. But you just have to kind of do one thing at a time, or add one new thing at a time, instead of on day one you're like, okay, email, YouTube, newsletter, blog. Like it's too much. So you got to just take one bit at a time.
That's great, man. It's amazing to hear that you started in 2015, then rebranded in 2017, and now we're in 2020 now. But you have
Mhm.
a site that within, let's say, just say 2017 is when you started. Yeah, no, let's take it back.
Mhm.
2015, in 4 to 5 years, you were able to completely not work a job anymore, making plenty of money for you and your partner, as well as all the other
Mhm.
employees that you have. You're creating a fantastic business and helping people along the way. That's what I find as I serve and help more people, the better my life gets. Not
Mhm.
just monetarily, but at the same
Mhm.
time, even I just feel better. I'm like, man, look at all these people that are getting. When I
Yeah.
help, I have a coaching student that coaches that I coach them about investing in real estate. They buy their first
Mhm.
property or eventually quit their job because they have enough properties and enough money coming in. I just feel ecstatic. I just so amazed at that. Now, I guess there's so many things that we can do, but at the same time, there's so many great ways to make money. And dollarsprout.com is a fantastic site that is really,
Thank
really helping people. Now, I want to jump into the rapid fire round. Are you ready?
Yeah. Yeah.
All
Let's
right.
do it.
So, yeah, this really broad overview. You should be able to answer these questions pretty easily, but some might get you to think a little bit. So, the first one, we think about legacy. We don't have to work 40 plus hours a week for a job, but we can hopefully give back. But we think about legacy and not to be morbid or anything, but if and when you die, because it's a proof of fact, 100% of people die, what would you
Mhm.
like to have written on your tombstone, talking all about Jeff and this is what he's done and this is what you should remember him for?
Man, that's a good question. This is like not rapid fire. This is like deep
This is a deep
dive.
one. So yes,
No,
like
no,
I
I
should
like it.
change it to deep questions with Dustin.
I would say, you know, right now I could see it being built a really big business so then he could do good for the world. And I want to eventually get to a point where it's build a really big business that did a lot of good for the world. I think it's a little bit of a distinction. I think, you know, in the last couple years, we've gotten really good at, getting a lot of traffic, making a lot of income. And like, while that's great and everything, one of the downfalls to, not having that personal brand or as strong of a connection with your readers is, you kind of miss out on, like, I don't have coaching clients or anything like you even if you're still making an impact, you don't see it because you're kind of behind the wall of the brand, which, was our choice to do. But at the same time, it would be nice to, you know, engage with the community a bit more and, really see the impact that we're making. Because right now it's just less than, if we had taken the more personal approach.
Yeah, that does make sense. I like that idea is just
Mhm.
helping more people and like having that written like
Mhm.
created something so then he could then help more people and serve more people. I think
Mhm.
that's great. Now, if you were to go and give somebody one bit of advice other than get started, because everybody says, oh, just get started now, which I agree, just get started. What else should or advice you would give to somebody that says, you know what, I want to create a website that helps people? What's your advice to give them?
I would say if you want to eventually leave your job to do it, do not leave your job until you're making significant income from the website. Like, I cannot emphasize enough how stressful that was to leave with nothing coming in, and it negatively impacted like every area of my life for a year. And I don't want to ever go through that again, and I don't want anyone else to go through it because it sucks.
That's a good,
So
that's a great
yeah,
tip.
it, I hate to be like, do as I say, not as I do, but really, you want to make sure you have some level of security before you leave your job. And if I could go back and change one thing, I don't know if I could really change it, but I would try to not be so naive.
Awesome. Now, if you're going to go back and give your younger self any advice, could be life, business, or whatever, what would it be?
Uh, Study what you want to study in school if you're going to go to school. I made the mistake of, entrepreneurship never really crossed my mind at all as a kid growing up. It was, I either wanted to be a doctor or like a rocket scientist or, something that just sounded good that, made a lot of money and made people think I was smart. And, that ultimately like guided my path in undergrad of, I'm studying biochemistry. I hate it. I started skipping class more. I wasn't doing great. Graduated with a 2.6, and, just I was not set. Like if I would have just like found like what I liked earlier on, or just been open to like, hey, I think marketing is kind of interesting. It's not, as like a young, like a teenager or like a college student, marketing is not as like glamorous as like, I'm going to go to med school and be a doctor or like a surgeon or whatever. So just do what you want to do is what I would tell myself.
I
Because
wholeheartedly agree with that. I liked your statement. If you go to college, because I'm all for, like, I don't think anybody. I don't, some people need to go to college, like doctors, lawyers, but not. It's not for everybody, and
yeah,
especially the debt that you get into. It's just crazy how much people are paying now for college. So
yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
I
Did you have
was
something to
I,
say?
I was I was fortunate enough to, somewhat split the cost with my parents for college. I know some people are completely on their own and some have it all paid for. I was in between, but even still, I mean, that was a big burden just to pay off half of, the cost. And yeah, I don't think I'm completely in the anti-college camp yet, but maybe if I have kids and by the time they're ready for college, I think the world is going to be a lot different, and I don't think college is going to be, you know, the same as it is, like viewed the same way that it is now.
So
But I
so everybody watching this on YouTube, I'm gonna grab something. Hold on. So everybody watching now listening, so here's my diploma. So I
oh,
literally found this recently inside of a drawer, and it's can you hear that? It's
mhm,
literally embossed in wood. It's nice. My parents paid it, I don't know, a couple $100 for it. It looks really
yeah,
good. But you know what I'm gonna do? I'm literally gonna blow it up because I will never ever need it again. I'm absolutely in the camp of you will never ever need to go to college if you do so many, like, that's why I have
mhm,
successfully unemployed show, is there's so many ways to make money to provide for your family than
yeah,
going to college. But I'm like, I will never use this piece of wood or this piece of paper
yeah,
ever again. I will never ever have another job. And so I'm gonna make a video and then blow it up because I'm just
that's
like,
awesome.
this thing's a waste.
Yeah,
Now,
I've got
I did
I've got a
learn.
big sadly, I've got an even more, like, impressive wood frame for mine. Like, I mean, it's huge. It's like double it's ridiculous. My mom paid, like, $200 for the frame, and now it's like a constant reminder that, like, there's that biochemistry degree that I slaved away through and never use and got in a lot of debt for. It's like people might see it on the wall as, like, impressive, and I see it as, like, a chip on my shoulder, like, almost in a
uh,
weird way, even though it's, like, not, like, it
No, you know what? Something that you wrote in. So as people come on the show for Successful Unemployed, I have them write out, talking about their history and stuff. One thing that you touched on that I want to touch on, even though this interview is getting rather long,
Mhm,
you talked about humility, and
mhm,
I want to know what's your thoughts about humility, because I personally love humility. I'm a very prideful and arrogant person, and so I really have to work hard at not doing that because humility is just so much better. What are your thoughts about humility?
I've been told that I overdo it. I think one of my weaknesses is I don't acknowledge how far like, how much we've accomplished, and I kinda downplay it a lot, and I think it's fine to do that because I mean, no one wants to hear you, like, brag all day about your successes, but I think also, at the same time, I'm quick to, like, discount how much we've accomplished, and I stay so focused on, like, trying to reach the next level or, whatever that I just like, "Oh, yeah, it doesn't matter, like, how we did last year," like, or, "Who cares that we have this many readers, like, I want double that," or that's not healthy either. So, yeah, I think humility is a good thing, but it can be overdone, which I
I
think
get
is
it.
one thing I
Well,
do.
if you get self-deprecating,
Yeah,
that's when it's bad. I
I'm
think
very much
humility
like
is, yeah. So humility and everything I've learned about humility, I love, absolutely love humility.
that. Mhm,
Humility is not, let me see if I could get this right and how to say it right, but humility is not thinking less of yourself, like self-deprecating.
mhm,
It's thinking of yourself less. Like, you don't even think about yourself. You're thinking about the other person. You're trying
mhm.
to think, how can I help you? How can I benefit you?
Ye
It's not like self-deprecating where you're
mhm.
putting yourself down.
No, that
So
makes
that's
sense.
why I love humility, because the more people that I meet that I just say, hey, I'm not important. You're important. Tell me about you. The
Hmm.
more I learn, the more I get to know somebody, the more if somebody comes away like, hey, that was just a nice guy. And I'd rather be looked
Yeah,
at as a nice guy than an arrogant, hey, that guy just,
that
he
that's
thinks he knows
true.
everything.
And I would also, yeah, love to get better about that too. Cause I think, like I said before, it's like when you get in this like business mentality, you almost, it's almost like you figure out how the game works and then you like just try to get better at it rather than it's easy to fall into that trap instead of like, well, how can I like really connect with these people and like truly help them? And, you don't all like sometimes you can choose between helping people the most and maximizing your profit the most, and they're not the same thing. And I think it's hard to balance because once you figure out how to maximize your profit, it's easy to neglect the other side. And I think that's something that like I really want to work on, like being more aware of in the future as we like hopefully grow.
That's great, man.
So,
Okay, last two questions should be
yeah.
fairly quick. What is one app, one tool, whatever it might be? It could be a piece of
Mhm.
paper and pen. What should we use that you currently use?
A notebook.
Ah,
I have tried to use Asana and Basecamp and all these things. Like, I've got to have a pen and notebook with like a checklist. I make the boxes. Like, that's how I am, and I'm not ashamed of it anymore.
it's good.
So
You shouldn't be. That's
yeah,
that.
that's
There's
just how I
something
do it.
better
I just
about
every day is a new page, and you just do it. And yeah,
there's something so much more fulfilling though about literally putting pen to paper and writing it down. I remember things that I've written many, many years ago as opposed to things I typed. I mean, I've typed lots and lots of stuff. The things that I
mm-hmm.
actually write by hand, it just sticks in your brain.
Yeah.
So last question is what is one nonfiction book, could be business, life, or whatever it might be. What would
Mm.
you suggest we read?
Um, I would say I'm trying to think. One book that I read that a lot of people think is like a really cheesy book, but I really enjoyed it was The 10X Rule by Grant Cardone. Um, it's a little woo woo and over the top at times, but I really like it. I mean, his way of looking at life is very unique, and I love just the way that he just you know looks at everything through like just a bigger lens of like what is possible. If you say you want to make $100,000 a year, like set your goal to make $1 million a year, or if you want to impact this many people, impact 10 times that many people, or whatever. And I think it's a good book. It's worth the read. I probably have like a few more that I could rattle off, but that one, I always come back to that one whenever I'm asked that question.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good, Matt. Jeff, you've given us so much great wisdom. I want to create a site like Dollar Sprout. I think that's a brilliant business. Good for you. Now, if somebody wants to reach out to you and learn more about you, or even just go to dollarsprout.com, how can they
Mhm.
do that?
Yeah. So I don't know how long you have between recording the podcast and releasing it, but we're in late February now. I think hopefully in the next 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, we have our brand new site launched. We've been working on like a redesign like for like since last summer. It's been like a huge project. I'm so ready to get it out there. But yeah, come to our site in early March. I mean, you can come now. It'll look good, but it'll look really good in a few weeks. And yeah, if you want to, email me or whatever, I'm just Jeff at dollarsprout.com. Um, yeah, follow us on Facebook or what, I mean, all the same stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, and if you
I
go
should have a better answer for this. Yeah. Follow us on social.
there you go. So if you go to dollarsprout.com, you're going to find some
Yes.
great information for finance. Really, I mean, if you go to college, I mean, step back and go to high school, and step back one further and go to elementary school, they never, I'm going to say just about never, teach you financial
Mm-mm.
understanding, financial literacy, or even how to be financially independent. And so dollarsprout.com is a great way to go to just learn about finances. So Jeff, you've given us so much great stuff, very
Thank
much
you. I
great
enjoyed it.
information. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for being here.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks. Enjoyed
All
talking to
right,
you.
man. You take care.
See ya.